Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Ultimate Spider-Man issue 14 by Jonathan Hickman, Marco Checchetto and Matthew Wilson. Peter and Harry's journey through the Savage Land takes a wild turn this issue, but before we check in with them, we see what Richard has gotten himself into with the new Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, who is determined to kill Spider-Man for his hand in crippling her father. Richard is rather quick to point out that he didn't actually do any of that since he's a different Spider-Man, revealing his identity and the fact that he's only a 15-and-a-half-year-old boy. Felicia is taken off guard by this reveal and tells Richard that she herself is only 16 and a half. And this caught me off guard as well, since obviously you expect Peter to be the one to have Felicia as the villain or the foil or even the romantic interest at some point. It's never this. We've never had this before and it's just uncharted territory and it's really interesting. It's also kind of a reverse of the original Ultimates, as in the original Ultimate Universe, Black Cat was a little older than Peter, and when she found out he was literally just a kid, like here, she rightly rejected him and even kind of humorously threw up in his crutch because it's the Ultimate Universe after all, there's got to be some sort of edge to it as well. This is fun since we have Richard, a character we've never gotten anything of before really, and Felicia with a possible new love interest and someone who is more or less the same age as her. It's new, untapped territory which can be hard to come by with a character whose mythos have been around for 70 plus years. Peter and Harry meanwhile seem to be doing just fine in the Savage Land, having actually done what I theorized they would and tamed the raptors that attacked them at the end of the last issue, saddling them up and riding for the edge of the forest. Peter has one drive throughout all of this, to get home to his family as Kraven knows who they are, and I love how Hickman hammers it home that he only has one thing on his mind. Kraven knows who MJ and the kids are, and he hates that. And Harry actually takes notice of this, finding Peter isn't really in the game and he's kind of elsewhere in his mind, and he needs to deal with the fact that they're going to have to kill Kraven. I love Harry is still on this kill train with Peter, trying to tip him over that edge like he has been, and every time Peter just refuses to go low and instead take the high road, take the hero road. Peter tells Harry he isn't going to kill him, they are going to escape, hide their families, suit up, come back and sort out Kraven. Harry does bring up a good point since Kraven isn't just one guy, he is part of a group and defeating him doesn't defeat the group, who will still want Spider-Man and Green Goblin dead. Now that's a really interesting thing to talk about because that's kind of like the whole Marvel Ultimate Universe, or this Ultimate Universe in a nutshell, where you take one guy out of it, the world is still gonna be a fucked up place. Like, as we've seen, like they've taken Maker out of the equation, at least for a little bit here, and the world is still very much messed up. The Ultimates are having trouble, rallying people to their side. Spider-Man and Green Goblin are having trouble here. The X-Men are dealing with all their stuff, but Black Panther's dealing with his stuff. The world is still fucked up. It doesn't matter if they're heroes or not, and I quite like that. I like that it can also just be applied to singular characters like Harry is implying here. Take one guy out of the equation doesn't really make any difference. Before they can properly hash out a plan though, Kraven strikes, killing their raptor with a sniper rifle and driving them into some rocks. Peter's natural heroism shines here as he tells Harry to run for it while he distracts Kraven, and he does this by outrightly showing himself to the villain, giving him a clear target as Harry runs. Peter's spider reflexes and spider sense allow him to dodge the bullets and escape himself, but Harry and Peter go from one problem to another as they run into Mole Man, who surprisingly wants to actually help them, revealing that his moloids in the ground have opened a secret tunnel for them to escape into. Hickman really gives Mole Man a decent bit of development here, as it's implied that he's working with Fisk not because he wants to, but because he has to, which is really interesting, and because we learned earlier that Mole Man is seemingly Wilson's oldest friend or oldest partner in this whole venture, so they've been with each other for quite a while, and I wonder if there's maybe some sort of parallel there between Peter and Harry and Kingpin and him, like maybe they were similar in that way, where one was telling the other to be, do something evil, kill these people or something like that, while the other, Peter didn't want to do that. I wonder if there's some sort of parallel there between these two groups of men. That'd be really quite an interesting thing to do, especially with Mole Man. I'm not too familiar with Mole Man-centric storylines with Fantastic Four and all that sort of stuff, but having one where he's kind of like this guy who kind of playing both sides, because here he doesn't really want to do this, but he's also kind of like a bootlicker a little bit for the Kingpin, is really quite interesting. As Peter and Harry are taken to safety by the Moloids, Mysterio meets with Mole Man, who also, of course, is trying to get a leg up over the others in the Sinister Six, subtly threatening Mole Man that he won't ever let him forget him letting him in on Kraven's plans and where Peter and Harry are off to. Of course, Kraven knows all about their betrayals, having been spying on them this entire time, but before we see where his plans go, Richard and Felicia find themselves talking it out with each other and learning their stories instead of battling across the New York rooftops. Richard finds that Felicia being forced into this role by her father and the larger Sinister Six cabal is quite wrong, and Richard is perfectly embodying this trait of Spider-Man where I feel like we've hardly ever seen as of late, and that is his relatability. He's just offering this girl, this teenage girl, a shoulder to cry on, more or less, and basically listening to her talk and listening to her vent. And that's something I think Spider-Man should do a little bit more often. It's that relatability, being able to talk with him and actually have some sort of connection with him. And I like that is what Richard is doing here. He's not Spider-Man and he's just pretending to be, but he has all of those Spider-Man traits. Richard does learn that Felicia is mad about the position she's been put in, and she kind of saw Spider-Man as someone just to kind of take her frustrations out on. Despite Felicia revealing some things about her, Richard doesn't reveal any more than his first name, mostly at the behest of the suit, which warns him not to. I do get that Richard is adhering to the rule of, secret identity. You can't really reveal too much about who you are, but with the suit being sentient and being there on him, it feels like it's kind of holding him hostage in a way. Like he can't reveal anything lest the suit do something dangerous or violent, or, maybe hurt his mother or something. It's kind of a square that Hickman's gonna have to circle sooner rather than later of what the whole deal is with the symbiote suit, and what did it do with MJ and all that sort of stuff, because it kind of left that last issue on issue 12 where we didn't see what happened after she found out that it was the suit that was portraying Peter, not actual Peter. Don't know what happened after that, so I imagine we're gonna find something probably truly horrible happened, because this is the Ultimate Universe. Peter and Harry meanwhile set up a series of traps for Kraven, utilizing their bomb collars from before as well as some tripwires. Again, Harry tries to get Peter to do what he won't and finish Kraven off when the time comes. Peter is still laser focused on getting to their families. And this is when Harry drops a little bomb on Peter as he reveals that Gwen will be totally fine thanks to some protocols that he and Otto came up with. So the minute that he was snatched, Gwen would have been taken into this kind of special witness protective custody type thing that they set up. But Peter's family wasn't going to be, because Otto doesn't know who Peter is. This further drives Peter and Harry apart, since it's very clear to Peter that Harry doesn't really think of anyone but him, or anyone he cares about. Doesn't think about Peter or anyone like that. It's just him and Gwen, and they are both kind of in it for themselves. As we've seen with Gwen, she's quite business savvy and quite laser focused on the business side of life, never really being able to connect with people or anything like that. It's all business with her, and this is just going to be another thing that drives Harry and Peter apart more. And it's really interesting how Hickman is just doing this slow build. There's he's compounding things on top of the other. It's not just going to be, oh, he's Green Goblin, he wants to kill people, Peter doesn't want that. That's going to be the core of it, but there's just so many more layers to it through all this sort of stuff where Peter and Harry have differing opinions on how they should go about their heroing business, how to protect their families and stuff like that. There's just so much more than just, one wants to kill, one doesn't want to kill. Elsewhere in the Savage Land, Mole Man finds his Moloids slaughtered by Kraven, learning from the lone survivor that he now knows all about the tunnels and where they go, so he can pursue Harry and Peter. And Kraven does just that, coming at the heroes with a minigun, which Peter is able to draw the fire of again like he did before and dodge the bullets, making Kraven run out of ammo quite quickly. Despite knowing that the odds of the situation he's in, Peter still also cracks some jokes, which I really like as it gets under Kraven's skin, causing him to pursue the hero right into their trap, which causes a huge explosion which wounds Kraven and relieves him of much of his weapons. Peter proves to be the superior warrior and easily defeats Kraven in hand-to-hand combat, knocking him down and breaking his last rifle. Peter's dialogue here I found rather cocky and a little bit out of sorts for him. I get that he's angry that Kraven knows who his family is and what he has done, but him implying that Kraven couldn't dare beat him because he has powers and Kraven doesn't feels very out of place. And as I said, he is angry and has every right to be. It's just weird hearing Spider-Man kind of get elitist about having powers over someone and, kind of beating someone who's weaker than him. I'll say this, it's not a Spider-Man thing, but it's a very human thing, and I kind of like it, but also it feels really weird Spider-Man doing that sort of stuff. Harry tries to goad Peter one last time to kill Kraven, but he doesn't, instead telling Kraven that he's going to forget all about their loved ones and leave New York and never return. I feel like this is also setting Kraven up for his big return, like maybe he does go off and get powers of some type, like, he's the more traditional Kraven, how he has animal-like powers. Maybe he goes and gets that from somewhere and comes back to try and fight Peter. It definitely feels like there's that setup for that to happen here. However, before we would see any of that, we actually get the wildest twist of the book as Kraven goes for his revolver, firing and hitting Peter in his side. Peter wonders why his spider sense didn't trigger when he was shot, and Kraven reveals that he wasn't shooting at Peter, leading to Peter to find that Kraven has shot and killed Harry. I love this for multiple reasons. Firstly, because it's a very cool twist and something I didn't see coming. Secondly, it builds off what Kraven has seen of Peter so far. He's someone who uses himself as a target because he knows his spider sense and his powers will help him dodge the bullets. So Kraven doesn't actually shoot at him anymore. He decides to shoot the guy behind him, the guy who can't dodge bullets. It's a wonderful bit of foreshadowing that we saw with Kraven. He's studying his prey and learning their skills and like how to get around them, and I thought that was really genius. Being his best friend has been murdered, Peter returns to beating Kraven to a pulp, and this is where the next interesting thing happens as Mysterio turns up, proclaiming that him and Peter are allies, and even implies that maybe him and Peter might know each other or have had some sort of history at some point. At least whoever is behind the fishbowl helmet might have. And we learn that he wants to see Kraven dead, but interestingly he convinces Peter not to kill him, since that's not what Peter wants to do. He wants to be with his family. Harry's death is now thrown into question immediately for me. Did it actually happen, or is this Mysterio now in control of the game, and everything we've seen up until with Kraven attacking with the minigun, is that all just an illusion on Mysterio's part? It's really exciting to see how Hickman is deploying all these villains in interesting and unique ways and doing it so in the same storyline as well, and it doesn't feel overcrowded or too much. They're not like vying for page space. Everyone has enough to go with. Mysterio messes with Peter a little bit more, making him wonder should he check on his family, so Peter manages to leave the Savage Lands and return home to MJ, who demands to know where he's been since he's been missing for quite some time. And again, this feels a little bit too convenient, as it could be a Mysterio illusion, especially because MJ asks how he could just disappear on them and not say anything. Now, she didn't know he disappeared. She didn't know he was kidnapped. She thought he was there the whole time until she found out that Peter she'd been talking with was actually the symbiote costume. So again, her dialogue kind of hints that this is probably all some sort of illusion, as well as like the way Marco Cicchetto draws it has a very like weird sort of like dreamlike quality to it, where like the backgrounds are like darkened and like there's not really a lot of detail in the background where you can't really see like you would in a dream, where you're only focused on that one thing in front of you, which Peter is just MJ, but everything around him is kind of like sort of like almost sketched out in a way and not fully developed. It's definitely got to be some sort of Mysterio illusion, and I'm really excited by that. I'm looking forward to seeing how Mysterio operates in this world. Peter does manage to tell this MJ that Harry is dead, and because of that, they now have to go on the run because the villains all know who he and his family are, so nowhere is safe for them. Ultimate Spider-Man issue 14 was a whirlwind mixture of story, action, and intrigue, tied all together with a wonderful late issue twist that upturns everything we saw in the book up until then, and everything we've been working towards with Peter's Spider-Man. I love that Hickman is still able to find something wildly interesting to do with these characters that adheres to their core concepts, yet feels so radically different and refreshing. I can't wait to see if my theory about Mysterio's illusions are true, and what happens to Peter in the wake of Harry possibly being killed. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.